just talk about your health. We help you watch and protect it. I am Ifetobori Fotoku and I would be your host. Now let's start with a quick story. Let's imagine you were a farmer and you had weeds on your farm. Then you got herbicides to spray the weeds. But the first time you did this, all the weeds died. The second time, a few weeds died only. Now the third time, all the weeds were alive, like they were never sprayed with herbicide. And they were laughing in your face. Why do you think this happened? What have you done wrong? Because it seems you had raised the weeds to become stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens to our bodies with tuberculosis and drug resistance. And today we'll be talking about tuberculosis drug resistance. And with me on this show is a researcher who will break it down for us, because your health is your wealth. And I'm sure many of us have heard and have also said that tuberculosis has no cure. Today, we'll be able to decide if the answer to this is yes or no.
Tuberculosis generally is an infectious disease that could be transmitted from one person to the other, from one infected person to the other, or from a carrier of the organism to the other. We have different types of tuberculosis. We have pulmonary tuberculosis, which case is the type of tuberculosis that affect the lungs. The lungs are the two structures within the chest that one uses to breathe in and out. That's the lungs. If the lungs is infected, then we say the person has pulmonary tuberculosis. Then we also have extra pulmonary tuberculosis. That is tuberculosis affecting other parts of the body apart from the lungs. It can affect the kidney. It can affect the bone, tuberculosis of the bone. It can affect, you can have renal tuberculosis. There may be other parts of the body apart from the lungs. Now, the causative agent of this disorder, of the disease, is an organism, we call a bacterium. The name of the bacterium is what we call Mycobacterium. And there are different species and different strains of mycobacteria. We have the commonest is what we call Mycobacterium tuberculosis. There are other species, but they all belong to the genus Mycobacterium. So if somebody is infected, if the lung is infected, we say the person has pulmonary tuberculosis. If other organs of the body is affected, it's extra pulmonary tuberculosis. And one of such organs could be the bone, and then the kidney and some other parts. How do we know that somebody has tuberculosis? If it is pulmonary tuberculosis, the person will be having constant coughing. The person will be coughing, and if the person is doing drug trial, maybe self-medication, which is not allowed, he will go to buy medicine, buy antibiotics, or if the antibiotics is prescribed by a clinician, the person will be taking the antibiotics, but the cough will persist because what the antibiotics that is used is taking care of is not tuberculosis. Tuberculosis has a different treatment approach. So there will be persistent cough lasting for years after a medication, antibiotic medication has been put in place. The cough will still persist. There could be night sweats. There will be elevated body temperature. Mild body temperature, the body temperature will be raised. But the commonest symptom is that persistent cough, especially in the night, but it also happens during the day. So this is, if somebody is coughing persistently after a prescribed course of antibiotics, coughing, then it's expected that the person should be investigated for possible tuberculosis. Before we go to resistance, the usual drug for treating tuberculosis are what we call first line drugs. First line drugs, like rifampicin, like ethambutol, and some other pyrazinamide, INH, and all that. Those are baseline drugs, first line drugs. But because some of the organisms have developed resistance over time, for instance, organisms, as we are trying to eradicate organisms are also trying to survive. Yeah. So they are developing strategies to make them survive even when the antibiotics that are commonly used are being used against them. It's a form of survival strategy developed by the organism, the Mycobacterium species. Some of them will undergo mutation. You know, some of the drugs have their drug targets. If you take a drug now, the drug has a target, and this target could be gene of the organism. So the organism can also undergo mutation, changes the genetic makeup. So once the genetic makeup is changed, even if you use that drug, the drug will not be effective again. So it's a form of survival strategy. As a result of drug pressure, mutation can occur. As a result of harsh environmental conditions, mutation can occur. Even light, UV light exposure, radiation exposure could cause mutation of a gene. So gene mutation could be one of the responsible factors for emergence of drug resistance. But sometimes when people use substandard drug, the drug that the active ingredient is not even sufficient, the drug is not potent because the active ingredient is suboptimal, that could also be seen as drug resistance. And that's a big problem because most drugs that are fake drugs now are substandard. So when people buy the drug and they are using it, there will even be no effect of the drug. It could be. But as long as the drug quality is ensured and the treatment regimen is put in place and is complied with, and the treatment is still, and there is still treatment failure, then we can say that is drug resistant. And there are many factors, like I said, including mutation of the gene. That there is also a system, apart from mutation, from science. See, like I said, it's a survival strategy for organisms to survive even when you are trying to kill them. They also have what you call active efflux pump. The microorganism, the bacteria, because this is a bacterium, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis is a bacterium. So the bacterium also possesses what we call efflux pump gene. That happens to be one of my own PhD research work. How many of the species of Mycobacterium tuberculosis actually possess efflux pump gene? What the efflux pump gene does is that as you are taking the drug, as the patient is taking the drug to kill the organism that is causing the disease, the organism itself, the drug will penetrate into the organism. And it will go to the organism with the intention of working on the active sites of the organism. But some of these bacteria, they also have a gene that we call efflux pump gene. As the drug is entering the intracellular component of the organism, so that it will go and affect whatever the drug is supposed to do, the organism also develop a system that is pumping out the drug from itself. That's the efflux pump gene. So we have drug influx, drug efflux. As drug is going into the organism, the cellular compartment of the organism develop a mechanism of pumping it out. So before the intracellular concentration that will kill the organism is attained, then the organism has pumped out the drug. So in effect, as the drug is going in, it's pumping it out. So it will not be able to kill the organism. That's another strategy for developing resistance, apart from mutation that I mentioned earlier on. Tuberculosis, even though globally, tuberculosis is being targeted for eradication, and by many strategies. including increasing the case detection rate and all that. But it's not a death sentence. Once somebody is properly diagnosed of having tuberculosis, whether pulmonary tuberculosis or extrapulmonary tuberculosis, treatment intervention are available. Long ago, we have first-line drugs, like I mentioned earlier on. But even if it is established that the person has multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, there are other line of treatment, the second and third line treatment for tuberculosis. And it's not, the cure rate is certain once the person is properly diagnosed and the person adhere to treatment regimen. So this tuberculosis is treatable. Prevention, people say prevention is better than cure. So let me look at preventive aspect first. People should avoid living, well, of course, with the economic situation of the country, we cannot say people should avoid congestion, because we all board private buses, private vehicles, and if somebody is coughing, there is nothing you can do to say the person should not cough, especially when the bus is congested, especially people moving in motorway and some other public vehicles. So once somebody is coughing, they should have a way of avoiding direct exposure. Because once somebody coughs, aerosol is generated. What it becomes infective is the aerosol that is released. Because in the aerosol, the microorganism is trapped into it. And direct inhalation is a serious way of contracting the disease. Even if there is if the person coughs and the aerosol falls on the ground, if the aerosol dries and the gentle breeze raises the dust, one can inhale the pathogen. Aerosol is when somebody coughs or talks, some liquid will come out. Spit is something you intentionally spit out. But this one, as you are talking or as the person is coughing, some form of fluid comes out. And the fluid is accompanied with infectious agent. So if somebody directly inhales it, the person is directly inhaling the pathogen. Or if the person spits or coughs, and that's why we say people should have cough ethics. When you want to cough, you cover with handkerchief. You don't spread what I call aerosols into the others. So that's for the prevention. Now, if somebody has an infected person, one should make sure that that person is properly diagnosed, proper laboratory diagnosis, and is properly treated. Because if one person is infected in the family, that person has the potential of infecting 10 other persons in a year, and the whole family could be infected. So that is a way of prevention. For the treatment, anybody that is coughing lasting more than persistent, if somebody is coughing persistently, after complete treatment of antibiotics, and the person is still coughing, it's better for the person to go for proper diagnosis. And the diagnosis includes laboratory diagnosis, where the person will be asked to bring the sputum, the cough, not the saliva, but the thick one that comes from the lung. If the person cannot produce sputum, there are other techniques that we can use: urine, saliva, so many other methods that can be used. So that person should go for proper diagnosis, lab diagnosis. Sometimes the person will also be requested to do some other investigations like X-ray, like chest X-ray, or by the time we do lab investigations, radiological investigation, combining these two will give you precise diagnosis, plus the clinical diagnosis will give you the precise and accurate diagnosis of the case. So we should not be doing self-medication. Okay, he has treated this and it's not working, let me buy some other drug, use this. So there must be treatment based on precise diagnosis. Self-medication is outrightly not acceptable. Even though people do it, but that should not be the way, we must orientate or reorientate the attitude of people towards that. The reason why is not you waste money because you will be treating wrong thing, then maybe inappropriate treatment regimen will be done by the person that is self-medication and medicating. Then another thing is that you may be treating a wrong thing because you can't treat what you don't know. So it's better to go for proper diagnosis, identifying the problem. In this instance of TB, is a pathogen. Identify the pathogen. You can even go for investigation to know whether this pathogen is a drug-resistant type or drug-susceptible type. There are test facilities like that. There are techniques for doing that. So it's better to do testing before treatment. Malaria, TB, HIV, they are highly subsidized. So if you go to government facilities, these are subsidized. Even if you go to some private facility too, that are getting the support from government, they are not as expensive as people thought they are. But even if we say it is expensive, it will be more expensive to self-medicate and to do what we call polypharmacy, using different drugs. There will be indirect or direct damage to organs when you use too much or too many drugs when you don't actually need them. Is that okay? So it's not good to self-medicate. I will appeal that you continue to sustain the advocacy and continue to appeal to the public to continue to put a preventive intervention in place, which I have listed. And if they suspect possible TB in anybody, they should go to the nearest hospital facilities to get tested and then to be given proper treatment.
Thank you so much, Professor Rahim, for joining us on this show and for teaching us a lot about tuberculosis drug resistance. And to our beautiful guests who are sitting and watching us, thank you so much for staying till the end. Remember, your health is your wealth, and we must watch it together. I am Ifetobere of Photokun. Thanks for watching.
This is ANN.